Okay. You ready? Let's do this. You're listening to Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. This is the podcast that delves deep into the outdoors, will inspire, inform, and get you stoked to explore. And I'm your host, David Webb. Welcome to Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. I'm your host, David Webb. It should come as no surprise that listeners of this podcast, readers of the magazine, visitors to our website, love mountain biking. Consistently rates in the top 5 preferred activities of our audience, and we routinely feature locations like Golden, British Columbia, or Canmore, Alberta. Most recently in the summer 2023 issue, we highlighted Caslow, BC. We've covered Vancouver's North Shore, of course, and even some hills out in Quebec and New Brunswick. But what about the areas of Canada where there are no real mountains to speak of? That big stretch of land known as the prairies. Can you mountain bike without a mountain? Today, my guests are Melissa Stefaniw and Alex Mann. They are partners in life and in business, and they are hugely influential in the mountain bike scene in Manitoba. They're based just outside of the boundary of Riding Mountain National Park. And yes, I realize I just said Manitoba has no mountains and then said Riding Mountain National Park. And while yes, there is over 300 meters of elevation within that park, we're not exactly talking Rocky Mountain peaks. Melissa has been a huge supporter of the Northgate Trails outside of Dauphin, Manitoba, near the park, and Alex is a geological engineer and trail designer who is behind most of the recent development of trails around Whiteshell National Park, Neepawa, Dauphin, Minnedosa, and more. So it's fair to say, yes, you can mountain bike in the prairies, and Alex and Melissa are leading the charge in developing an accessible, attractive, fun, and exciting network of trails and a mountain bike community all over the province of Manitoba that you're going to want to hear about and then you're going to want to see for yourself. Stay tuned for Melissa Stefaniw and Alex Mann. Melissa Stefaniw and Alex Mann, thank you for joining me on Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, super great. Thanks for connecting with us, David.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this. Where are we talking to you? Where are you calling in from?
We live right on the north boundary of Riding Mountain National Park, which is western Manitoba near the Saskatchewan border. Closest town is Dauphin, about 10 kilometers further north from us.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've never been to Riding Mountain. I've been to southwest Manitoba a number of times. I have family out there, but we did an article on Riding Mountain a few times. Actually, it's been made in the magazine, and it looks really cool. A lot more elevation than I think people would expect coming from Manitoba and Saskatchewan area. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're southwest. It's the Manitoba escarpment that extends right up to us and past us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we've got about 1,000 feet of vertical right out our front door, which people don't normally think of Manitoba as having that.
So why do you live up there?
I met my wife here.
Nice. So Melissa, is this your home area?
It's not actually. I relocated to Dauphin about 13 years ago from out west. So I'm originally from Alberta, and then I spent a good chunk of time into my early 30s in BC. So I relocated from Golden, BC to Dauphin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a while ago. So yeah, I grew up on the prairies and made the usual foray that, a young person does into the big mysterious mountains, and then came back to the prairies as I got a bit older and realized that I liked it, and also that I couldn't afford BC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a familiar refrain. Yeah, Golden's a beautiful place, though.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'm seeing some connectivity because you're both very much involved in the mountain biking community, mountain biking scene in Manitoba, which is really interesting. I live in Vancouver. We have a lot of readers out west, a lot of listeners out west, and we're very familiar with mountain biking in the west, but perhaps less so in the prairies and in Manitoba. So, Alex, I'll start with you. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about your involvement in mountain biking community in Manitoba and how that came to be.
I've been a mountain biker since probably a teenager. And I did the same thing. I tried to escape to BC for a while, lived in Whistler and Vancouver for a bit, ended up coming back to Manitoba for school. So in the meantime, I wanted something to ride. So as a hobby, I kind of got into trail building for myself, my buddies, my kids. And my kids got pretty into it and started racing. And we have a local club called Kids of Mud out here. Well, it's several clubs that basically it's like a hockey practice for kids on mountain bikes. So you teach them skills and basically how to race eventually. And they went up through that system and found themselves on the provincial cycling team. And I just kept coaching as a Kids of Mud coach. So I started building trails for that purpose, just to teach kids and entry-level stuff. And one of the first projects that came about was the Canada Summer Games mountain bike course at Bison Butte.
Okay.
I was looking at the site. It was actually really close to my office, and they had a hill built up. It was just the fill from IKEA that they built in Winnipeg. And
oh, really? Interesting. Yeah.
So any topography in Winnipeg, we're starved for it. So all the mountain bikers are eyeing that up. And I just approached Fort White Alive, who owned the land there, and said, hey, would you mind if I brought my Kids of Mud team out there just to ride on your hill, just to get something in? And within minutes, the president of the place called me back and said, what are you thinking? And I mentioned mountain bike trails, hiking trails, running, bird watching, you name it, and they were right into it. So that got put on hold because they still wanted to build more of a hill. And then the games came along and kind of sped it right up into an actual project that the only thing in Winnipeg that was missing was a mountain bike venue for the Canada Summer Games.
Right.
They were into putting a bit of money into it, and I just found myself in this spot where they went, what are you thinking, Alex? What can you do? And I'm like, well, if you want a real mountain bike course, we can design something and build it. And they went for it. So that was like my first professional trail design build project. So from there, it just kind of took off. And the company that I worked with, Scatliff Miller Murray, they did all the drawings for me for that. And when the project was done, they just said, hey, we like this. Do you want to come and work for us? And so I left a stressful job of engineering for nuclear waste disposal and, and went into trail design full time.
What a fascinating and lovely change. Eh? Just, I really like, really going from when you said stressful job, I was nuclear. When you heard the word nuclear, you're like, yeah, it's got to be stressful. I don't know what that is, but there's some stakes there for sure.
Yeah, the funny thing is that there's a lot of similarities there because we were out mapping in the bush, geological mapping. So we used a lot of the same, or we used tools that were translatable into the trail design field, and a lot of professional designers are using the ArcGIS and stuff like that, imagery and terrain analysis. So it's all translatable, and I just turned it into something more fun.
Well, sounds like a dream job for sure. Yeah, you bet. And Melissa, you have a bit of a different experience in the mountain biking community and culture in Manitoba. Maybe you were involved in Golden, but I'd love to hear how you fit in.
I was actually a long-term old school snowboarder. I started snowboarding when I was 11 years old in Alberta, and one of the first, certainly girls, let alone people on the prairies to have a snowboard. And so I moved to the mountains for that purpose. And I didn't actually end up mountain biking there because I would work so that I could snowboard during the winter. And in the summertime, I didn't have time to get into mountain biking. So I didn't start mountain biking until I moved to Manitoba. But something that I was doing was I've been working in major fundraising for about 25 years now. I started, doing that with the arts in Alberta, and then moved on to, tourism-based projects, recreation-based projects. So my involvement in, mountain bike trails is really specific to more projects of late, but my background in fundraising is related to small to large scale tourism and rec-based projects. So I've been involved in that kind of thing for a long time, which is how Alex and I met on the Northgate Trails project in Dauphin.
What is the province offering that you want to capitalize on, that you want to promote and provide to people?
Obviously, we're lacking the elevation, but I've been mountain biking a long time. Went to BC lots to ride, and you go out there, and this is back in the day, back in the 90s and such. The trails are are difficult. They're really hard. It's hard to get into the sport out there, or at that time it was. It was riders building for experienced riders, and so you try to bring someone brand new into the sport, and they're scared. They just can't do it. So what we're trying to do here in Manitoba is really focus on the entry level, intermediate rider, make it really fun, lots of flowy stuff, and not a ton of climbing. So people can, they're not busting a lung in the first 10 minutes. They're experiencing fun and the flow of mountain biking right away, rather than just getting beat up or scared they're going to get tossed into some rocks. And that being said, we do try to design stuff that will challenge advanced riders, either by built technical trail features, or the Canadian Shield in Manitoba is quite techy. It's difficult. There's some good hard riding out there. It's just we don't have that big elevation. Now, I did mention the riding mountain. We've got 1,000 feet, so we're starting to work with the park now to expand the Northgate trails into that 1,000 feet of elevation. So we're working on that too.
I live in Vancouver, very close to the North Shore, and I definitely hear what you're saying. I ride gravel. I'm not really a mountain biker, but certainly the North Shore trails are incredibly intimidating to a lot of people. I've found friends who have come out here from even mountainous areas that have found it particularly challenging out here, and finding that place where they can just get started. It's great to get kids involved in it. Obviously, start them off, just like you said, with fun. It's so important to start them off with fun, but I do know too that it can be intimidating for late starters, adults who are joining people who are the same age but may have 20 years of experience. So you just, like, for myself, when I've started a new sport as an adult, I felt very intimidated because people think, oh, you should be good. You must have been doing this for 10 years already. It's like, nah, I don't even know how to do this at all. So I love this idea of accessibility. Exactly.
When we're having kind of wider conversations with destination marketers and things like that, often the theme that we keep touching back on is that Manitoba is a little bit like a training grounds for adventure for everything. There's a little bit of everything here. The mountain biking thing has just recently, and trails in general have exploded in Manitoba, during and then post-COVID. There's definitely kayaking of all levels, beginner to really advanced in Manitoba. There's a little bit of climbing. There's all the backcountry experiences you could ever want. And a lot of that nature thing is huge because we are so sparsely populated here. For folks that are looking for that type of experience, that's an advantage for us. You often hear people complaining about that kind of thing, but if you want wide open spaces and no lineups, this is the place to be.
Yeah. No lineups, fewer crowds, obviously super desirable to a lot of people. Now, do you see what you're doing, Alex and Melissa, as more of a community building, or are you hoping to get more involved in tourism to bring in people even from outside the province, or is it both?
Both, totally. Northgate, for example, I think right now the majority of our user base are people from Dauphin. They're out there a lot. We've got trail counters out there, and you can just tell by we live right next to it. So we know when there's outer counters there, and we can compare that to the counters. And when the people are out there, and it is a lot of people, after school, after work, coming out. The weekends are packed. We have this broader vision of kind of creating nodes of mountain bike destinations, kind of with the Riding Mountain National Park as a focal point. So we've got trails being developed in Minnedosa, Neepawa, here in Northgate. There's Trans-Canada Trail spurs into the park. And we're trying to build that critical mass to make it desirable, from a longer distance.
Yeah. I mean, Alex is probably the most humble, one of the most humble people I've ever met. And he doesn't like to talk about all the things he is involved in, but he also sits on the Trails Manitoba board and is involved in a lot of type of capacity building sort of functions in the province to really, help catapult mountain biking and trail development in general in our province. So I think it's both, definitely. Community level, we work to advocate constantly and really build the culture here on the prairies. And then we are working, lobbying, advocating at a higher level all the time to try and leverage what we have here in Manitoba.
And so it seems like you've definitely developed some great stuff. How far do you have to go? Like, where are you? Where are you at in terms of your what you might have as a vision, official or unofficial, to the mountain biking scene in Manitoba?
I don't know if I have an end vision, but definitely I'd say we're maybe 25% into the vision.
That's right.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all. I didn't know what you were gonna tell me, but that shows the amount of work that you've done.
People are into it, and these little towns around the park, they're all starting to build trails. It's really quite exciting that they're seeing that broader vision and bringing people from at least the surrounding towns like Winnipeg, Brandon, Regina.
And it must start to snowball as towns see other communities doing it. Have you had a lot of experience with that, where communities have heard or seen what you've done in one and they say, okay, I want that too, and they come to you?
That's exactly what's happening. Riders from various parts of the province will come out. They're in a little town. They go, what? Dauphin's got this? We need this too. So yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's a nice little snowball effect.
Yeah, a little bit of it was based on sort of, a few years ago, the International Mountain Bike Association, so IMBA, came here and said, hey, it's possible for you guys to do this, but it has a few different levels, and you need kind of a base level number of kilometers to make it a destination, considered a destination, as well as a few other attributes for your community, like a brewery or like a cafe, things like that. And that's what we are totally seeing happen. Breweries due to open in a couple days. We've seen new restaurants open up, Airbnb and places like that have exploded, new operators. So yeah, things are happening. I think like locally, we just need another good chunk of kilometers to make it like a riding destination like Cuyuna or other places that people are really traveling from further distances for.
Yeah, actually, Cuyuna is a great example of what we're trying to do, and they don't have a lot of elevation either. It's an old mining community.
And where is that? I'm not familiar with that place.
Minnesota. Yeah, 5 hours southeast of Winnipeg, and it's a fantastic, well-designed, modern machine-built trails that are very entry-level friendly, right to advanced, and they've got their whole community's just rallied around it, and it continues to grow. So yeah, that's kind of what we're the model.
Yeah, that's really neat to see that you could build trails, bring people in, and start this economic development in an entire town because of the things that people are going to expect or they want, or just inspire the local community to say, okay, we didn't really have a need for a brewery or a demand for a brewery, or probably coffee shops. Yeah, like you said, accommodations, campgrounds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Lots of research has been done on the mountain biker demographics, right? So it was it's an easier model to sort of figure out on this end if you're not an experienced marketer or anything. We know that they like beer.
Yeah, it's true. And we see that all over the West with some of the little towns. I'm from Vancouver Island. There's a town called Cumberland that developed in the past few years where it was honestly, it was two steps from being a ghost town 25 years ago, and mountain biking has brought it back to life. And the same thing, it's like beer, coffee, merch, place to crash at the end of the night, it's cool.
Yeah, so it's a great model, like you said, for towns that are if they're struggling, but they just haven't leveraged their natural assets, right? Like take a look at what you have around and see what you can make for generally speaking, a low bottom dollar that is actually sustainable, right? That's the great thing about trails. It's not a rec center that you have to heat all year round, or, a hockey rink, another hockey rink, which is something we see constantly here.
Yeah. But realizing that you are doing this in Manitoba, Do you feel that it's taking more for you? Because say Cumberland, in Vancouver Island, where it's like backed up against the mountain range, or some of the early development in the Kootenays and stuff like that. I mean, they had logging roads built down the mountains that they could start with from the get-go. They almost had it pre-built in, and industry roads, forestry access roads, but you're kind of building it up from scratch. So how does that challenge differ, and is it more expensive? Is it more monumental? Is it more emotionally challenging?
I'd say some of my clients might vouch for the emotional difficulties, but honestly, though, I talk to people. I go to the Professional Trail Builders Association conference every year, and the timeline between a project being just thought of and actually construction starting, it's generally 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And that's accurate from my experience. Someone will come to me with an idea, or I'll come to them with an idea, and we'll go, yeah, that's cool. How do we get this done, kind of thing. And from that moment, till the time an excavator's on site, 5 years. So it's those 5 years feel long, well, especially that are, they want something in their backyard to go and ride. So by year 4, often they're discouraged, and then suddenly the momentum picks up and it just flies into place. So it's tough. Yeah, 5 years it's long and slow, but it's often necessary with permitting, land user agreements, funding, design, you name it.
So how many projects go on the go at the same time? Because, you can't just wait 5 years every time. There must be a whole bunch of things happening at once, or else you'd never get anything done.
Well, we try to fill the hopper with projects. Right now we have, I think, 3 builds going on in northwestern Ontario. So I have a colleague that helps me with that, our Scatliff office. We've got Minnedosa being worked on, so that should be finished this year. We've got another phase in Neepawa, which should start hopefully this fall. We did one full bike park at an old borrow pit there.
These are just down the road.
These are all close. Those are the close ones. Those are what I can think of off the top of my head. But we've got something kind of brewing.
So we've talked a lot about people getting involved in mountain biking, the accessibility, a lot of good vibes, benefits to the community. What about challenges? What are some of the main hurdles you find when you're coming in and wanting to build a park or a trail network?
Probably the best example I can think of is Minnedosa, who they had a bunch of trails themselves before I was involved. Just local people wanting something to ride. They had some sort of handshake agreements with some of the landowners, and then someone got a little freaked out about what was happening, and just not familiar with mountain biking and not familiar with the demographic that mountain biking actually is. And just said, nope, we're not doing that anymore. I guess they saw a Red Bull show or something and decided to drop it, and convinced a bunch of their neighbors to do the same. So that whole community was suddenly left with nowhere to ride, and they have to go and find new land and negotiate with those landowners. So permission is probably the biggest hurdle, and it's probably no different than any other province or state. Getting that is the first bit. Beyond that, it's just finding the money, and that's where Mel comes in.
That's great segue, because I'd love to hear about that side and the challenges and successes you've had there.
You mentioned sort of councils and permissions that way, and funding support and everything. And I think that projects that I've worked on over the years, it could be a skate park or a splash pad, or it's public art, or it is, anything that is beyond fixing the roads or, snow clearing or anything like that on the prairies can often be a bone of contention in a community. And you're going to find folks that are going to be not supportive of that idea. And I found that generally speaking, through one-on-one talk and showing folks, what can be done with the property and just educating people on the demographic that you're inviting into the community, and on how those people have a respect for the land, and what will actually be happening, and how will it oftentimes what are the economic benefits. Then you'll find that you're turning people, right? And you've got folks that maybe were against that idea, that are suddenly some of your best advocates for that idea in your community. So yeah, I think that getting support, like funding wise, from a municipal council can often be really difficult too. They have so many expenses, so many things they need to spend their money on that it can often be difficult to get cash, that initial seed money going. So I would say, having a fundraising strategy in place is really, really important for smaller communities.
So, I mean, it does seem, though, like beyond, your professions and everything, that this is such a passion of yours, though, because, all the hurdles and the long wait times and sometimes the red tape and the resistance, you must be getting so much satisfaction from seeing these projects come to life, right? To make it all worth it.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. But at the same time, you build something, you go, oh, I got to do something better now. Or I could do that better if I had just a little more money.
Yeah.
That was that. I don't know if I'm ever totally satisfied.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe when you are, that's when you'll retire or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you take those projects, the new communities, and say, okay, this is what I did for them, and what I'd really like to do for you is make it even bigger and better. This is how we could improve that. Is that how you're working, or is it just kind of budgetary?
Well, a bit of both.
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of liken these things to golf courses. So you want to go to a different golf course for a different reason, and you want to go to a different bike park for a different reason. Maybe there's just different types of features there, or just the way it works with the terrain. So yeah, I try to do something different everywhere that I work on a project within the budget that's allowed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, always trying to improve on what we did, and there's always mistakes. You learn and you try to improve on them next time.
And how do you stay on top of all the trends and the new features and the new things people are looking for in parks?
That's hard. I like to just try to ride as many places as possible.
Cool.
And we're planning on doing that a bit more this summer. We've been so busy, we haven't had a chance to do that in the last little while. Yeah. Isn't
that funny sometimes when you really, take a passion into a career, sometimes it actually takes away from your ability to enjoy that passion or to participate in that passion. Yeah, it's a great irony, I think. Yeah, because you want to do it, right? You want your passion and your career to align.
Yeah, you do. Exactly. It's a very fine line to walk. We were out the other day and did, I think 3 or 4 tours of Northgate with different groups in one day, and just thought, okay, that was exhausting, right? You're out there doing what you love, but it's just from such a different perspective. So, I think that's why it's important to build your business in a way that you can bring in others too to benefit for it, right? So bring in other tour operators, and that's kind of how we approached Northgate as well in its design. Is how can what does this asset look like from an operator perspective? How is it going to be able to benefit local, folks that have other types of skills that might be able to develop new programming on that asset? So that is something that, Alex and I both always bring into conversations with groups that are considering trail development in how they look at the overall design.
And there's a big event coming up in Northgate this August, right? A race?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It's the Northgate Classic Mountain Bike Race. So this is our second annual. We've had 3 or 4 races at Northgate, but due to COVID, obviously we lost a couple of years. But we have. I guess Alex, you could probably speak to the course itself and what unfolds there.
Yeah. Well, Northgate, the initial catalyst was the Manitoba Games. So
right.
It's for 12, 13, 14-year-olds. And we designed, initially, the whole project started because of that. So we designed a course there that would accommodate that type of an age of rider, but also built onto it an extra couple kilometers with some more technical stuff to accommodate the broader Manitoba mountain bike community and be able to hold like a provincial race here. So we designed a course that very spectator friendly. So it's kind of a cloverleaf style design where you're watching a rider, you're going to see a rider 2 or 3 times a race or a lap kind of thing. So that's, a big difference from the old school days of, you disappear into the bush for 45 minutes and
someone comes out the bottom and they're like, okay, it's over now, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, a lot of the Olympic courses are kind of going towards that, where there's lots of crossover points and stuff like that. So you bring the riders to the crowd a lot. So yeah, we're looking at, we have for this year, it's a 6-kilometer course. Multiple laps for different abilities. Last year we had more of I think it was 10 kilometers. Same format though. Multiple laps for different abilities, and we're also doing a time trial this year. So I've always wanted to do a technical time trial. So basically, you've got your cross country event where it's mass starts and there's lots of people out there, but this will be you against the clock and a set course. And a little bit more, just a different flavor of race. Yeah,
that'll be fun. The one fast loop kind of mentality there on the time trial. That's super fun.
We really try to, I think one thing of note is that the mountain bike scene in general is, it's growing in Manitoba for sure. And I think it's exploded, but it's still quite a small segment of the population. And I think a main focus of ours, and certainly that should be in other communities, is to really help, build that culture and opportunities for people to get into the sport. Like you said, right? Sometimes it's too technical. Often equipment can be a bit of an issue. So with this race, we use, we've got a fleet of bikes that was part of the overall fundraising for the project in the area that are available for people to use if they want to try a race. We've got under 11-year-olds and then a 5-kilometer beginner race where we're going to have only beginners in that race. So they're not intimidated by that overall, elite energy that can sometimes be part of the race community. So we're really trying to focus on inviting, new people to try out the sport, and also, in the competitive environment, but without the intimidation, that sometimes comes along with that. So yeah, that's a big focus for us.
There's not a lot of times you get to be on the forefront of something, and it does seem like you're on the forefront of this within your province, and you get to, with all your stakeholders and all your community members and all your participants, get to forge it the way you want it to be, the way you think it should be, with all that input and stuff. And how does that make you feel to think that you might be forging a legacy here that's going to be like looking back at you and being like, these were some of the people who helped get it going. These are some of the people who built the first parks and stuff. That must be exciting.
We might hire you as our agent.
I don't know if I would look at myself as forging much, but I definitely, it's a hard on the sleeve type of issue for me. Like we're living and breathing it every day. And we think about it constantly about how it can improve, how we can improve, so it feels pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Do you see yourself as a mountain bike destination, Manitoba, as something that's able to compete with the broad mountain bike scene around Canada?
Initially, it wasn't what I was thinking. I didn't think we'd want to try to compete with the mountains as a mountain bike destination. But then people from the mountains started coming out here and they're going, this is really fun. They really like it. So now, I imagine a mountain biker traveling across the country. Maybe they're visiting or riding in Ontario, and now they can go through Saskatchewan and Manitoba and go, oh, there's a couple places to ride. And there's more than a couple places to ride. There's lots, and there's some really good stuff. So they stay, and then they tell their friends, and people start coming through. And just, really working on that entry level, intermediate level, I think is our niche. We have what you need, and those riders don't want to climb for half hour right off the hop and turn around and go down one of the North Shore trails.
It's family friendly. That's the difference, right? You're not going to haul, especially if you're from the prairies, you're not going to haul your 6 and 7-year-old with you out to some hard trails in BC, because they're just not going to be able to hack it. Or say your spouse that is just getting into the sport, something like that, right? So it's totally. We see that all the time here on the trails is, full mom and dad are out there with their one kid on the bike itself and two little kids on various levels of mountain bike behind them, and they're out there all day, and each one of them is having fun in their own way, the way that it's been designed, right? So it is, it's pretty cool for that, and I think Manitoba could own that, actually. Yeah,
you just don't get that in the advanced trails in BC. The one rider in the family is usually trying to break away family trip to go and ride. But here we're really trying to promote, okay, there's a reason for the rest of your family to come here too, and they're going to have fun, and then you can ride guilt-free.
And I love that. I love that idea, because I do see sometimes with tourism organizations and or local athletes or whatever trying to take wherever they are in Canada and be like, oh, it's compete against something else, and it's like, but you have something special. You have something special. I mean, I see that in Saskatchewan sometimes when they're like, oh, it's not so flat. It's like, actually, that's kind of what's cool about Southern Saskatchewan coming from BC. Like, that's what I actually like about it. So don't tell me it's not flat there. It is, and I think it's really neat and interesting. The topography is fascinating to me. So to think that you're saying like we're offering something different, I think is really exciting, and I definitely wish you all the best.
You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. It's and we have tons of support too. I mean, Travel Manitoba and Trails Manitoba and all of our kind of those key allies in tourism here they get that. They understand, what Manitoba has, and they've been hugely supportive of, the fact that we have the winters that we do here. Astounding winters, and so they're very helpful with, helping new businesses and other organizations capitalize on that stuff rather than try to hide it. Don't know a remedy for the mosquitoes, but I'm sure they'll think of something.
Mountain biking with a net over you or something like that, right? Hey, just go really fast and they won't catch up to you.
Just keep pedaling,
Travel Manitoba has done some advertising with us, and they've pushed a lot of like traditional things you might expect, the hiking, the camping, the paddling. I'm really looking forward to seeing mountain biking getting even more promoted to our audience, because I'm interested, because I'm actually more of a mellow, flowy trail rider. So I'm thinking like, there's probably more for me in Manitoba when it comes to that than there is in my own backyard.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, if you're ever back in Southwest, come on up.
Any of our listeners who want to find out more about your efforts and your parks and your plans and what you're doing, where could we look you up?
We are on Decipher Services /wilderness online. I should note that we just changed our name actually to Trail Tutors. So we'll be making that transition over the next few months, but everything will be forwarded anyways. And then Northgate Trails on Facebook is where you can see a lot of what is happening there as an example of kind of the model that Alex and I use to approach a lot of the projects that we do. So Facebook and Instagram, Northgate Trails. And Alex, you could probably speak to where your work can be found.
Well, Scatliff Miller Murray is the company I design with. And so they're an urban design landscape architecture firm. Head office is in Winnipeg, but there's a solid website. We're kind of across the country now.
It does sound like you're going. There's a lot on the horizon, and I'm excited to see where this develops, because I think that even the term mountain bike might need some refreshing when it refers to places that don't have what we consider mountains. But this is the cusp of an excellent industry and excellent community that you're really doing well with. Any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with about mountain biking in Manitoba?
Mel brought up winter. We should highlight that the fat biking out here is fantastic. Again, you don't need mountains for actually. It's
better without mountains for fat biking. Actually,
climb as much on a fat bike. But we do a lot of grooming around the province. There's kind of key people at various spots and trail spots that are just I'll call them relentless groomers. They're so good. They're out there every time that it needs it. And so you can come out here. I think that's one thing Manitoba has to offer is a potential fat biking hub. I'd love to see our provincial team get more into it. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see fat biking be cycling's way into the Winter Olympics. And we could be a total hub for that around here.
So much to be excited about, isn't there? I love it. And it's an industry based in fun. We're all out there having fun too. So it's just win-win-win. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah. Don't worry. I don't think
saturated. No, it is. It's nothing but fun. Yeah. And check us out for any of those winter programs too. We offer, full accommodations and rentals up at the trailhead all winter too. And yeah, fat biking has taken off in Manitoba, and it's fabulous. So no bugs.
All right. Thanks so much for joining me. I learned a lot, and I really appreciate you being so willing to share your passions and your hard work with your community, with your province, and now with everyone across the country and beyond.
Great. Thanks, David.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, keep up the good work with Explore.
I'm inspired. I'm inspired by Melissa and Alex. Their passion, their hard work, their dedication to build something that is legacy, that is community, that is active, that is outdoorsy, that is inspiring. It is everything I strive to do at the magazine, and they're doing it on the ground, literally. Building trails where there weren't trails, economic development, tourism, revitalization, fun, healthy living. It's all here. It's all in Manitoba. Now, I don't know about you, but I want to go to Dauphin. I want to ride the Northgate trails. I want to ride into the national park. I want to see this elevation in the middle of the prairies. I want to have fun. I want to get in the flow. I want to see this community for myself. I hope you feel the same. And I encourage you to check out travelmanitoba.com, and we'll post Alex and Melissa's links on the website at explore-mag.com/podcasts. Thanks for joining me today. I'm David Webb, and hey, live the adventure.